Hey, welcome to Dating Advice for Men Who Love Women. When a man is very attracted to a woman, he tends to either kind of let that fear of being rejected by her stop him from ever taking an action towards her. Or on the other hand, he starts rushing, starts going way too fast. And that is one of the biggest and most common mistakes that men make with women is rushing and going way too fast. And let me tell you this, because if you understand this principle and you apply it correctly, you're going to do better with women for the rest of your life. Here's the thing, there is never a reason to rush things with a woman. Even if you're not looking for a relationship and you're just going for quick hookups, that's still not a reason to rush or to push things too fast. Doing things quickly doesn't mean that you're rushing. This is a very specific thing. And again, really understanding what rushing means and how it plays out in the real world with real examples is very helpful to understand when you might be rushing and kind of how to prevent that when you're interacting with women to make sure you're not doing this. Because if you eliminate rushing and you still take measured steps forward at the right time, because we still have to take action, you're going to do a lot better with every woman that you interact with from now on. So we always have to remember this. You should always keep this in the back of your mind that there is never a reason to rush, no matter what your mind is trying to get you to do. And when your interest in a woman goes up or it's really high to begin with, your mind is going to try to tell you to rush. And self-control, where you stop yourself from rushing, is one of the most attractive things possible to a woman on its face. Plus, because you're not rushing, you're not putting her interest level at risk from rushing itself. So it's a double-edged sword of preserving her interest level and also raising it because you're demonstrating self-control when you do it. And again, most men don't exercise self-control when they have high interest in a woman. They let it slip. And that's why it's so attractive, because it's really hard to do when you have high interest. The higher your interest in a woman is, the harder it is to control yourself and stop yourself from rushing. And that's why it's so attractive. It kind of shows her in a real way what your potential value as a partner is. And here's the thing, rushing puts a woman's attraction to you and her interest level in you romantically at risk. Always remember this. If you have high interest in a woman and all of a sudden it becomes urgent for her to hook up with you or to go on that next date with you or to see you or to be in a relationship with you, if it becomes urgent to her and she expresses urgency towards you, that feels really good because you like her, you're attracted to her, you want things to go forward with her. On the other hand, when you express urgency towards her, it puts her romantic interest at risk. So she's allowed to express urgency and you're not. Now, again, that doesn't mean that you shouldn't take action and that you can't go quickly if you're just going for hookups, for example. You absolutely can, but rushing is slightly different. And so, for example, the special forces in the United States have a saying that's kind of like, slow is smooth and smooth is fast. So you're actually going as fast as possible when you're not rushing. Festina lente, that's like an old Latin phrase, I think, that means something like make haste slowly. And that principle should always kind of be working in the background when you're interacting with a woman. Make haste slowly. So we're never going to rush with a woman no matter what. And there might be a situation where you're like, oh, I need to rush. Well, that's the situation where you should not rush. And we're going to go through 7 examples of what rushing looks like in the real world with a real woman so that you know exactly what I'm talking about and how to stop yourself from rushing. So taking action is not the same thing as rushing. So yes, you should go start a conversation with a woman right away if she holds eye contact with you a little bit longer than normal. That's a buying signal from her. Go start a conversation with her right away, immediately. That's not rushing, that's just taking action. That's showing courage. Rushing is you start that conversation with her, and right away you ask for her number without talking to her at all. That's rushing. And okay, like let's say you meet her in an elevator or something, and it hits the floor that you're going to and it dings or whatever, you don't have any time, you can ask for her number right away. But let's say you just meet her at a bar or a friend's party or a wedding or something, and you say, "Hey, what's up? What's your name?" Whatever. And then you're like, "Oh, what's your number?" That's rushing now. Do you see the difference? So rushing has a lot to do with what you do after you take one step forward. Do you keep rushing in, or do you take a step forward and then kind of pull back a little bit and also be a challenge a little bit and let things play out a little bit? And it's taking action to ask for her number after you talk with her for 10 or 20 minutes or whatever, but it's rushing if you start texting her 5,000 times that same night. There's a big difference between taking the right action at the right time, taking slow, measured steps forward, which we should do, and rushing in and crushing her interest in you, which most men eventually do if they really like a woman. And we're not going to do that anymore. So we're going to do a lot better with every single woman we meet from now on. And so from now on, when you meet a woman that you're very interested in, whether you're just going for hookups or you want to meet the right woman for you and be in a long-term relationship with her and have her be your girlfriend and or your wife, whatever your goals are, from now on, whenever you meet a woman that you're interested in, you're going to take slow, measured steps forward, and you're going to pull back in between those steps, and you're going to take off any pressure that you might be applying subconsciously to the situation. And so you're going to express interest by taking those actions that we need to take and those steps forward that we need to take to lead this male-female interaction. And you're also going to take the pressure out of it. You're going to be relaxed about the outcomes. And you're not going to rush. And again, even if you really understand this already and you kind of don't do it very much, there might be some situations where you're still doing it. And so let's talk about 7 specific examples of what rushing with a woman looks like so that we can eliminate all of this from our interactions with women and get better results. So first of all, the first example that I want to talk about is asking out a woman again immediately when you go on a date with her. So here's the thing. For a lot of guys, it's already hard enough to just get one date with a woman, right? But most men do not get a second and or a third date. That's usually what happens. You do not get the second or third date. And one of the reasons for that is rushing too much when you have a good time with a woman on the first date. So remember that women tend to fall in love slower than men, usually. Not always, but it's definitely a tendency. And so let's say you take her out for a coffee date and you're having a great time and you're talking to her and she's laughing at your jokes and she's tapping your arm and she's showing interest and you're like, wow, I really like her. She's really good looking. She's really cool. She's really nice. She's really smart. I really like everything about this woman. She seems awesome. I'm ready to get married right now, basically. Well, she's probably not going to feel that same thing until she's had that same experience with you over the course of 3 to 10 dates. It's usually going to take longer for her to feel that same level with you. So just because you're excited doesn't mean you should rush. You want to let her interest in you catch up because we want her to feel that way about you. It doesn't really matter that you feel that way about her. It matters if she feels that way about you. That's what we have to focus on. So you're going to kind of get out of your own head, not be selfish about it, and you're going to focus on her romantic interest in you, and then we're going to do a lot better. And so let's say you're on that really fun coffee date and it's going really well. You might be tempted to just say, hey, what are you doing tomorrow? Let's hang out again. Or, hey, what are you doing on Wednesday night? You might ask her out for the next date on your date. And that's a mistake because that's rushing. You want to give things a little more time to play out, and you want to let her think and wonder about you in between dates. So you want to have an amazing time with her on your date. And so she's feeling it too. And then after that date, you want to pull back a little bit and wait a little while and let her think about you, because that's when she falls in love with you. A woman falls more in love with you when she's not around you physically and she's thinking and wondering about you than she does when she's actually with you having a good time. You're going to feel more interested in her because of that more than she does. And she feels it more in between when she's like, man, we had such a good time. Is he going to ask me out again? Like, what's happening? So give her a little bit of that. Let her interest go up instead of rushing into rejection like most men do every time they get really interested in a woman. Because the only time this really matters is when you have high interest, right? That's when it matters the most. If you're not that interested, it doesn't really matter. And isn't it weird how it works better when you're only a little interested? Well, this is why. So you can feel fully interested at a 10 out of 10. You just have to realize that her interest level probably isn't there yet with you, and we got to chill a little bit for it to happen, for hers to go up that high. And we're going to let that happen. That's all it is. We're letting her interest come towards you too, instead of crushing it. We're exercising self-control and being less selfish. So don't ask a woman out again immediately after you have a great date with her. In fact, the better the date went, the more important this is, because you're going to be more tempted to do it, and you're liking her more, which means it's more important to do the things that work so that she likes you too over time and doesn't lose interest in you after 1 or 2 or 3 dates. Because we want to get all the way there with her. We don't want to be left on second base. So wait a few days and then ask her out on the next date. So you're going to take another step forward. We're just not going to rush it. And of course, we're not going to wait like 10 days to do it. We're just going to wait like 4 to 9 days whenever it makes sense to ask her out on the next date. And that's going to give her some time to think and wonder about you, and you're not rushing by that point. So the next time you meet a woman you really like and you have an amazing first date with her, just keep this in mind. You're going to be really tempted because your interest level is so high now. You're going to be really tempted like, oh my gosh, I better text her and ask her out again right away, or she's going to get with someone else or whatever. Nope. There is never a reason to rush with a woman. Never. And you're not going to. You're going to exercise self-control and then take the next measured step forward at the right time. That's the winning attitude. She'll be around. All right, next, number 2. Never be in a hurry to text a woman back. Now, this doesn't mean that you can't reply basically immediately to a woman's texts sometimes. Like you're just sitting there doing nothing and you get a text from her, you can text her back at a normal rate. Not a big deal. But you don't want to give her the impression, and you definitely don't want to actually do this where you're just sitting there by your phone waiting for her text. She's going to sense that, and that's going to put her interest level in you at risk. And so if you're doing something and then you see your phone buzzing from across the room and you're like, oh my gosh, it might be her, don't run over there right away and feel like you got to reply immediately. Just continue doing what you're doing and get back to her when it's the right time, like you normally would. And this is actually something you can apply to everyone in your life. You don't have to text people back immediately. That's the beauty of texting. So do it at the right time. Just don't be in a hurry and don't rush, especially because your interest level is high, so you're doing it faster than normal. We definitely want to avoid that. And I'm not saying you should always wait 4 hours exactly to text her back every time or whatever. We don't want to get into any kind of pattern, and we want it to be kind of natural. Just don't be in a rush. Just see her message and then respond normally. And if you're doing something, focus on that. And then later you see it and then you text her back. Don't text a woman back faster just because you like her a lot. That's called rushing, and it puts her romantic interest level at risk for no reason. And so we're not going to do that because we want the best thing for her and for you, which is for her to keep being interested in an awesome guy, you. So we're going to do the right thing, and we're not going to be in a rush. All right, next, number 3. This is a really big one that happens to even some guys who really understand a lot about male-female dynamics. So this is one of the main reasons I wanted to make this presentation, because it can happen to almost any guy out there. So let's say you go on 2 dates with a really cool person, and you're like, oh man, I really feel like things are developing here, and she seems to really like me too. And then you find out that she's going out of town on a vacation for 10 days or 2 weeks or for a month or something. Well, most men, when they're in that situation, when they know that she's leaving or you're leaving, like, hey, I'm going on a trip for 2 weeks. Most men in that situation, they finish those couple of dates or whatever, things are going well, and then they're leaving or she's leaving. They try to force spending more time with her before she leaves or before he leaves. And that is a big mistake. It's an example of rushing. So if this is the case, and let's say you go on the second date with her and you find out that she's leaving or you're going to go on a trip, do not try to force another hangout before she leaves or before you leave. That's a mistake. It's rushing. Just let her come back and then pick it up from there. Or when you come back, pick it up from there. That's how we handle that. Because forcing it doesn't work. It starts putting pressure on that relationship and her interest level. Now, here's the key to this. If she decides that it's urgent to spend time with you one more time before she leaves or before you leave, then it's fine and you should do it if it comes from her. If she's like, hey, I'm leaving on Saturday, you want to hang out on Thursday night? Even though you just hung out on Tuesday already or Wednesday, that's totally fine if she brings it up. But you're not going to try to make that happen. And let's say you're not even going for a relationship. Let's say you just are going for hookups and you're in another city for one night. That still doesn't mean that you're going to put extra pressure on it has to happen tonight ever with a woman, because there is never a reason to rush, even in that situation, because it actually just doesn't work. It doesn't mean you can't go fast if you're just going for hookups, for example, but you're not in a rush. If it doesn't work out, she's not available today, that's fine. And if you want a long-term relationship, you're not going to even try to see her again before she leaves or before you leave. Just pick it up when she gets back or when you get back. Unless she pushes for it, then it's okay and you should do it. This is really hard when you really like a woman, but again, that's the only time when it matters, and you never want to rush in. So instead, you're going to pull back and say, hey, you know what? Let's go out again when you come back. That's awesome. Enjoy your trip. And then you're going to keep texting to a minimum when she's gone or when you're gone. And if she's trying to do it more, that's great. You can respond a little bit more. But you're not going to rush in there. We got all the time in the world. She'll be around. This is the attitude that wins. And it's also winning for her too, because then she gets to keep being attracted to you. So this is a really big mistake that a lot of guys make, even if they know a lot about interacting with women. And so this is one of the focal points of this presentation. If things are kind of going well and it's been 2 dates or it's been 6 dates and you're almost there, don't make the mistake of all of a sudden rushing and forcing it. Just let it go. When she gets back or you get back, you pick it up from there like you normally would. Make sense? All right, cool. Number 4. Now, this is a tricky one a little bit. If you want a woman to fall deeply in love with you and you want her to be your girlfriend or your wife, if a woman texts you and asks you to hang out today, you're not going to say no because it's incoming. So when a woman asks you to hang out, you're never going to just say no. You're going to always pull her in. This is the right time to pull, not push her away, because she's coming towards you. So you don't want to say no, but to be a little bit of a challenge and to have some self-control and to let her feelings grow more, you're not going to be available anytime she wants to see you. Because being too available is very closely related to rushing, and it lowers female romantic interest level. So we're not going to be too available. So if she asks you to hang out today, you say, hey, I would love to, but I'm busy this evening. Can we hang out tomorrow night at 7 instead? Or can we hang out on Thursday instead? Give her a specific day and time that's not tonight when you can meet up with her, and that's how you're saying yes, because it's a specific counteroffer, which is the same thing as saying yes. Now, if you're just going for hookups and she invites you over, obviously you can go see her if she texts you at 11 p.m. and says, hey, come over. That's a different scenario, okay? But if you want her to fall deeply in love with you, and she's like, hey, let's do this thing tonight, she texts you at 10 a.m. and it's for 6 p.m. tonight, just say, oh, that sounds so fun. I'm busy tonight, but I can hang out tomorrow night if you're available. Give her a specific day when you can meet up with her. So give her a specific counteroffer if she asks to meet up with you today. This is what women respond to, guys, in terms of raising the romantic interest level. You're pushing her away strategically. When most guys rush in and crush her interest level, we're doing the opposite, and that's why she ends up with you and doesn't end up choosing all those other guys. So this is what we're going to do from now on. And then number 5, this is kind of a silly one, but it gets to the heart of this really well. So don't ask her to marry you on the first, second, or third date. A lot of guys are ready to get married. You know, I don't know about you, but sometimes you're just walking down the street, minding your own business, and walking down the sidewalk on the other side of the street, you see a woman and you know right away that you probably could marry her. It's a weird thing that we experience sometimes, right? It's like, I could marry her. It's love at first sight or whatever. And then maybe you like meet a woman like that and you really like her already. And then you go have your first date with her and it's like, wow, it's so fun. Like it's so amazing. And she's showing interest too. Let's just go ahead and get married. Like, I don't need any more dates. I already know. Let's go. Here's the ring. Let's go to Vegas. We're doing it today. Well, that's rushing. And a lot of people, like, I've heard of people who get married after a week or two of dating. And it's like, that's rushing and it doesn't take into account the way that female interest level works. And a woman's romantic interest level in you is the foundation of your relationship with her. And a woman who has 9 out of 10 romantic interest in you, genuine romantic interest, treats you a lot better. And it's a lot better to be with a woman like that than a woman who's indifferent or who kind of likes you or who eventually stops liking you. And so no matter how sure you happen to be about a woman or how much you like her, don't ask her to marry you on the first or second date. That's kind of an extreme, silly example of rushing, but some guys do kind of almost go that far. So that's why I wanted to bring it up, because it's a kind of silly example that really illustrates this principle. Because everything else that I've talked about is basically the same thing. It comes from the same place of rushing. So this is an extreme example that illustrates the point really well. So asking a woman to marry you on the first date is a lot more extreme than just like asking her out on the next date, but it's in the same line of behavior of rushing, of going too fast when you have high interest in a woman. And we're not going to do that anymore. We're going to take slow, strategic, measured steps forward with her at the right times. And we're not going to rush because slow is smooth and smooth is fast. And before we ask a woman to marry us, we want to see her character over a year or two. And we want to make sure that her interest level is high enough. So we're not going to rush on that, no matter how much you like her after 1 or 2 dates. And then next, number 6. This is a little bit deeper one. When you make some kind of mistake and a woman is upset with you, don't chase after her to try to immediately resolve it. Pull back a little bit, let it kind of marinate a little bit, and then resolve it with her. And we have another presentation that's all about this on the YouTube channel, so check that out if you haven't already. But when a woman is upset with you and she kind of storms off, you don't want to necessarily chase after her right away. Let that situation play out a little bit, let a little bit of time pass, and then resolve it with her. So you're not going to be in a rush to immediately resolve it with her. You're going to let it play out a little more naturally, but still resolve it. And when you come back to each other and you're actually talking about it, you're going to listen to her and you're going to resolve it well. And you're going to apologize if it's appropriate to apologize and you actually did something wrong. And you're going to stand your ground if you didn't do anything wrong for sure. But you're not going to chase after her immediately. Oh my gosh, I'm going to lose her. And that fear causes you to rush that. Just be okay with it a little bit. Let it kind of play out, let it kind of go a little bit, and then come back and resolve it. And that's going to work a lot better. And then lastly, number 7, here's a really interesting one. And this goes along with kind of guys rushing it when they're going out of town or she's going out of town, and they want to squeeze in another hangout before that. Well, this is a similar one that some guys do, and it's kind of a very clear crystallization of one of the lower levels of this principle playing out in real life. And so I've had some clients email me and talk to me on calls and stuff, and they're talking about like, she did this thing, and then like I kind of wanted to talk to her about it, and he kind of rushes trying to resolve that with her. So she does something uncool that he doesn't like, and even though she's the one who did that, for some reason, he's rushing to resolve it with her faster. Here's the thing. When she does something a little bit wrong, it's on her to come to you and resolve that with you, not you. So you shouldn't even rush. When she does something wrong, you should definitely not rush to resolve it with her. Let those kind of feelings play out. Let her understand in her body that you're upset. Not that you rush to tell her that you're upset and try to resolve it with her so you can move forward and so that things can be good again with her and your connection is back. Let her take care of that in the situation when she's the one who did something. You got to let her do it and not rush to try to fix it immediately when she was the one in the wrong in this case. And the fear that compels a guy to try to resolve it with a woman when she does something wrong, the fear of losing her if he doesn't resolve it with her, of that connection being gone, is the same fear of losing her that compels you to ask her out right away when you know you should step back and be a little bit of a challenge instead. Because you're like, oh, I'm going to lose her if I don't act now, if I don't strike while the iron is hot. And we never want to operate out of the fear of losing a woman, because that's when we're rushing, and rushing destroys female romantic interest level. So get really comfortable with letting these situations ride a little bit more, because internal strength, your ability to handle these kind of emotions that you're going through and control yourself still. You have really high interest in a woman and you're still not texting her yet. You're not asking her out. You're waiting a little bit. You're doing it at the right time. You're self-controlling that. And the emotions of like, oh no, I might lose her. Oh my gosh, I better do it. Oh, she's upset. I'm upset. We got to resolve it right away. All those fears, like having all of that come up for you because you have high interest and still taking the correct action makes you a strong, attractive man. And that's one of the reasons why it works better not to rush, because it shows her unequivocally that you are a strong, attractive man and you have internal strength. Because while having muscles can be attractive to a woman initially in terms of physical attraction, having internal strength makes a woman fall in love with you. That's what they really respond to, is internal, emotional, and mental strength. And you show that internal strength when you show courage and you go approach her and you ask for her number at the right time and you ask her out on a date and you put yourself out there and you take a risk. That's courage, right? And then you show it on the other end by not rushing. Confidence, she'll be around. Being a challenge, controlling yourself, self-control. These are very attractive qualities to women. So if you're just going for hookups, of course you can go through a process quickly, but you're never in a hurry and there is never a reason to rush with a woman, ever. All of a sudden you start thinking there is? Nope, that's a mind trip because you have high interest in her. There is never a reason to rush, and you're going to eliminate rushing now when you're interacting with women. And so from now on, you're going to get a lot better results. And if you want to know the exact steps to take forward with a woman and the right times to take them, then grab our best-selling Attract and Keep Her system right now if you haven't already. Inside the Attract and Keep Her system, we talk about exactly what to do from the first moment you meet your ideal woman until she falls deeply in love with you, and then how to keep her in love with you forever. And we also talk about how to identify which woman is actually the right woman for you. So if you want a girlfriend and or a wife and you want to be in a long-term relationship with the right woman for you and you want her to fall and stay deeply in love with you, then go to attractandkeepher.com/system. That's attractandkeepher.com/system and get the Attract and Keep Her system right now. And I can't tell you the number of emails that I get from guys all over the world who are like, hey, you know what? I listened to your stuff for 2 years. I finally got the Attract and Keep Her system, and I wish I would have gotten it sooner. So don't delay. You don't want to rush, but act right now. Take the right action at the right time. And right now, the right action, if you do want a girlfriend or a wife, is to grab the Attract and Keep Her system. And if you're not really interested in a relationship right now, and you just want to go for hookups in a way that's ethical, in a way that protects you, and also that leaves both you and the women you're dating feeling really good about everything the next day, then go grab the Good Guy Guide if you haven't already. So inside the Good Guy Guide, we go over exactly which steps to take forward and at the right times, and how to spike a woman's attraction quickly, really quickly, and also make sure she's really comfortable with you so that she's in the right frame of mind to go home with you or for you to go to her place, and you can take it from there. And so even if something happens the first night you meet a woman, you're still not going to be rushing. And the Good Guy Guide shows you how to do everything quickly with a woman without rushing. So if that's what you want, then go to datingadviceformenwholovewomen.com/GGG. That's datingadviceformenwholovewomen.com/GGG and get the Good Guy Guide now. And everything that we're talking about is linked below as well. So you can just go ahead and click from there if you want as well. And then lastly, of course, we have a lot of amazing free material for you as well. And I highly recommend that you take advantage of that. For example, we have a free course on our website that's called The Formula that goes through basically a preview of the attract and keep her system and all the steps. And that's completely for free. And it's a really great training course. So that's on our website for free for you. And then we have a texting ebook and a course on body language. And all of that is completely free. And they're really helpful. So if you haven't already, go to datingadviceformenwholovewomen.com. That's datingadviceformenwholovewomen.com and check out all the free material that we have there for you. So from now on, when you're very attracted to a woman, you're going to take action, but you are never going to rush.